Um, Let me begin by pointing out that ACSEnt, the Ateneo Center for Social Entrepreneurship, is very much a work in progress. Setup of the center began 9 months ago. I'm happy to say that at this time, 9 months later, we're actually in a position to be of assistance to fully functional live social enterprises. I find the potential of ACSEnt quite exciting, and hopefully in the brief time that I have with you, I can give you some sense of that excitement and what we're doing. I think the best approach is to simply tell you what we're trying to do and to have you weigh in on that with whatever your own experiences are in the field or in the related areas. So the center is a university center. It's hosted by the John Gokongwei School of Management, which is critical because somebody has to pay the bills. But it is a center for the entire university. And one of our challenges, and I think one of our greatest potential contributions, is to be able to find within the university certain gems that would actually be very, very effective when deployed in social enterprises. I will highlight later on one such gem that I think we found that I find particularly exciting in terms of its potential social impact. Our role is pretty straightforward. It is to harness and focus Ateneo's resources on the mainstreaming of social entrepreneurship, and in doing so, to help address the marginalization suffered by the communities that are key stakeholders of the social enterprises we assist. So, we're not the star of the show, the social entrepreneurs are, and we play a supporting role. It's a role that as a teacher, I'm very happy to sit in because it's exactly where our comfort zone is. Our students are the stars, and what we do is to assist them in becoming those stars. The goal is straightforward, if not ambitious. Actually, it is quite ambitious. It is to make social entrepreneurship part of the mainstream. And I understand that in very simple terms. We want dealing with social enterprises to become part of what is normal, both in terms of being partners with them, suppliers to them, customers of them, counterparties in contracts with them. In practical terms, that means our first step is getting social enterprises to a point of stability to allow two things. The first is to encourage confidence on the part of potential partners and counterparties to these enterprises. And the second is to give the social enterprise a base from which scaling up becomes a real possibility. It bears mentioning that critical to the success of commercial enterprise is the existence of an ecosystem that allows new businesses to thrive. Social entrepreneurship also needs that ecosystem. So, what is the plan? The plan, again, is not rocket science, but not necessarily easy to execute. It is to grow research in social entrepreneurship within the university and to engage directly with enterprises in the hope of creating a virtuous cycle where our practice improves our knowledge and our knowledge improves our practice. And where necessary, to get involved in advocating for change in partnership with like-minded institutions. Again, with the intent of building that ecosystem. One of the issues that social entrepreneurs are increasingly bringing to our attention is the possibility of working with this government to start looking into a different type of corporate entity. At the moment, our laws only allow a for-profit corporation or a non-profit corporation. And And as you know, in other countries, in the UK and some US states, there is already actually a separately identified corporate entity, which is a social enterprise. Going in that direction would allow government to provide tax incentives and other benefits specifically to social enterprises. And it is something that may be worth pursuing, but will require a lot of research and a lot of study. And it's something where we're minded to get involved if we can give any assistance. On the research side, we're starting with a partnership between the Ateneo, GK-Ateneo, and the National University of Singapore. We're building a curriculum that we expect to complete by March of next year. In the context of that curriculum incidentally is going to go into a class that we will be teaching in the university, which is an introduction to social entrepreneurship. But before we actually use it in the class, it's going to go to GK-Ateneo for training their trainers in social entrepreneurship. We expect to produce 13 case studies of live social enterprises and compile that into a casebook in support of that class. We are also interested in work that will build series specifically for social entrepreneurship, distinct from business and distinct from social development, but not separate from those fields. We find that a lot of entrepreneurs, as they are engaged in the field, are having to adjust on the fly what they learned in business school, what they learned in social development. And it would be a much more efficient process if we could bring our learning into the classroom adjusted already for the next generation of social entrepreneurs that we teach. And then there is the possibility of action research, where the work is directed specifically to achieving a particular goal. One of the things we're looking at is the possibility of getting directly involved along value chains, where if we're dealing with a particularly successful social enterprise, if it is possible to engage along the value chain of that social enterprise, more social entrepreneurship, so that the success of that enterprise is magnified significantly beyond its own particular activities. The other part of what ACSEnt is trying to do is direct engagement. And that direct engagement takes the form of the incubator we are building. And there are really 3 stages of support. The first is from conceptualization to startup, and this is really directly linked with GK-Ateneo. Because there are a lot of students coming out of the School of Management that are already initiating concepts, ideas for social entrepreneurship. And part of the challenge is to bring them to the point where they actually set up the enterprise. As Frank pointed out earlier, some of these ideas are actually quite good, and they do win awards. But there is still the one step of getting from the bright idea to initiating the enterprise. And that involves a lot of hand-holding. So we're working closely with the School of Management Business Accelerator, which is going to be helping students with their incubation while they are undergraduates in the Ateneo. And our hope is that they will be able to graduate from that incubator into ours as live social enterprises once they've left the university.